The 2023 class ended with Georgia finishing second behind Alabama. But it seems like Kirby Smart was not happy sitting behind Nick Saban in any form. And the Dogs are off to a torrid start in recruiting for 2024. Looking at some of their early commitments, I start to ask myself, could this be the best class ever? Texas A&M's 2022 class is currently considered the best class ever. But Georgia in 24 is already stacking number one players at their position. Safety Peyton Woodyard, tight end Landon Thomas, and cornerback Ellis Robinson kind of set the foundation of this number one class. But let's take a look at some of the top targets remaining on the board. You got number one QB Dylan Raiola, the number two wide receiver in the country, Mike Matthews, the number two linebacker in the country, Sammy Brown, the number one edge, Colin Simmons, the number two edge, Edric Houston. If you're seeing a theme here, it's a bunch of number one and number two players at their position. Chad, give me some latest intel on Georgia's top targets.
Yeah, there's a lot of them out there, Josh. Starting with the guys you listed, obviously Dylan Raiola at the top, 5-star plus quarterback from out in Arizona. Obviously, Georgia offered him first. He has a great connection with that staff. Todd Monken, Kirby Smart, Mike Bobo is very much involved as well. And I think right now 3 schools are to watch, and that's Georgia, Nebraska, USC. He'll visit Georgia and Nebraska in March. He was at USC in January. Georgia's very much in the race for Dylan Raiola. You mentioned Mike Matthews, obviously a 2 sports star, recently offered to play both basketball and football by the Auburn Tigers. Right now, he's focused on the basketball playoffs at Parkview High School. He is a top target for Georgia. Georgia wants to keep those top guys, as they call them, top dogs in state. Mike Matthews is one of those guys. You have to watch. I think numerous schools are still involved with Matthews from out in West Coast, USC, closer to home, Clemson, of course, USC, Tennessee, Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State's mentioned, Alabama. So I think still pretty early, but Georgia's definitely, I think, in that top group for Mike Matthews. Then you have Sammy Brown right there in Georgia's backyard, an elite linebacker from Jefferson High School. I think this one comes down to a showdown between Clemson and Georgia. Georgia is obviously high on his list. He's high on theirs as well. They would love for Sammy Brown to come in and join DeMarcus Riddick, a 4-star linebacker already committed from the state of Alabama to Georgia. Then you have Colin Simmons. Colin was on campus for a couple of days. The national championship celebration weekend in January had his mom, who was really his best friend, there with him, and both loved Athens, both loved the coaching staff, both loved Georgia. I think Georgia's put them in a great position to get a return visit, likely an OV from the star out of Texas. And he obviously sees what they've done up front on the defensive line with Trey Scott and that staff, and how he can be versatile and really improve his draft stock. So Georgia's in a great spot early, I think, for Colin Simmons. Then you have Edric Houston, a couple of guys there at Buford. Edric, obviously, an elite D lineman. You have his teammate KJ Bolden as well. With Edric, he's around that top 10, top 12, but Georgia's definitely who I think I would say in that top 3 or 4 group for sure. They're up against the likes of Clemson, Alabama, numerous other schools. But Edric Houston, KJ Bolden, 2 major targets out of that powerful Buford program for Georgia. They're both high on the Bulldogs.
What is Kirby Smart doing right now that sets him apart from a lot of other programs when it comes to recruiting?
I think he's relentless. I think he's consistent. The same way he coaches on the sideline, very detailed. He's very focused on every single play, what's going on, what's happening, the alignment, the details, being consistent, and just trying to figure out the best way to win. It's the same way off the field for Kirby Smart. He expects his coaches to work just like he does, which is recruit nonstop, stay in communication with the player, the family, whoever their inner circle is, and to keep it real. I think the kids like what Kirby does and that staff does. They don't sugarcoat. They don't promise you to play early, come in and start as a freshman. Just come be a part of what we've built and established at Georgia, and you'll get developed. Bet on yourself to compete and mature as a player. And if you do, you're going to, number 1, probably win. Number 2, get drafted.
So, Chad, does this Georgia class in 2024 have a chance to top what Texas A&M did in 22 for the best class ever?
You know, it definitely looks to be in that at least conversation for potentially doing that. You know, I think we saw out what Alabama was signed with 7 5-stars last year. A&M had a historic class the year before. Georgia seems to be in position to challenge that here in 2024, where they have already committed. And the guys that seem to be having Georgia at least in their top 1 to 2 schools, as a lot of decisions will be made in the next 3 or 4 months. And Georgia's in a great position to land quite a few of those guys.
Yeah, we're going to keep tracking them. They currently have 10 commitments. They're sitting at number 1 overall. Chad, thanks for joining the Inside Scoop today.
Yep, anytime. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you for watching. Make sure you smash that subscribe button for me. And remember to check out all the videos on the On3 YouTube page.